Hello and welcome to Time to Change. My name is Chason Forehand. I am the founder of Hr-4u Incorporated. We are on a mission to remove the barriers that prevent people from finding living wage employment. And today we're going to be talking with two of our partners about the ROI of paying your people a living wage. So today I have Jay Grooms. He is the founder of Jay Grooms Consulting, and he teaches human-centered leadership. And Michelle Arentz, the founder and fractional CLO of Lazarus Learning. So I am thrilled to have you both here today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to dive right in. This is a deep dive. If you have not joined us, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to start with Michelle and just say, you know what? What is the difference between minimum wage and living wage?
Oh, it's pop quiz time, and you had to ask the learning person that. What's the difference between minimum wage and a living wage? Well, if I wanted to be glib about it, Chason, I would say it's the difference between having a roof over your head and not. Yep. In terms of your minimum wage is whatever the government says is like, that's the bottom threshold. We'll scrape that barrel, whatever that number is. And that's the legal obligation that an employer would have. Now, a living wage is what it actually costs to live in your area, and that will vary. Clearly, living in rural Kansas is probably not going to cost you the same as, living in San Francisco or New York City. New York City.
Yeah, New York City.
So, there are some factors there, but that has to factor in. And living wage is meant to address a reasonable, comfortable lifestyle. So we're not talking any great bells and whistles. We're talking you can meet the minimum basics of the food, shelter, clothing kinds of things with a little bit of discretionary on the side.
So, Jay, having that definition in mind and seeing the difference of this, how do you think we're doing in the United States? And we're just going to deal with the United States, but how do you think we're doing in the United States of paying our people from a leadership standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, a living wage?
There's a chasm right now that is really hard to bridge. There are some huge percentage of people that live below a living wage, even if they are making minimum wage. So if you add up, let's say MIT has a great calculator online that allows you to look at what a living wage is, right?
Yep.
And when you look at the categories of jobs, I'll take myself, for example. I'm in San Diego. It's a beautiful city, lots of places to go and do, but the living wage here for a single dad like me is, I don't know, I think they define as 120,000. And if you look at the 22 categories of jobs underneath it and what they pay in San Diego, two of them average above a living wage.
Wow.
So that gap is enormous. And I know I've talked about it before, but I advocate for a top-down approach to solving that from the perspective of taking that money from where it's being spent at the top and pushing it down to the frontline workers and your people.
Yeah. If I might color that and get my paintbrush out and add a little that, Jay, perfection. Let me share a couple numbers that paint this picture beautifully of what you just shared. Now, I don't have it as specific as exactly where you are, but I looked through with the MIT study, which was referenced in a number of good places. So here's just something to tickle everybody's brain a little bit. The minimum wage, set minimum wage baseline in California is $15.50 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Across the board, and again, different places will cost different things. The required living wage in California is $21.24 an hour.
Yeah.
I mentioned Kansas a second ago. Let me paint that one even uglier just for a sec. Kansas still sits at $7.25 an hour minimum. That has not changed. It's like 2000 and something. I had it written here somewhere. They haven't changed it in ages. Seriously, $7.25 an hour. The living wage requirement in Kansas is $15.69 an hour. 48%.
And those are numbers for just a parent, not a parent, just a single human being.
One single
without
human being.
without children.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a
One
little
single
person.
human being. You're so spot on, Jay, with what you said.
Absolutely incredible.
So not by one person. When you think about somebody having to, with kids, anybody, any family, even if it's just more than one person, if you're taking care of your parents, if your partner to work, that the amount of money you have to exponentially bring in to pay rent, electric bills, utilities, food alone. Now, there's a whole factor of inflation in this, and that's what I hear a lot of noise about, that's the cause for this gap, but that's not the case. The minimum wage is set by the government, right? And the government has to argue and disagree with different people in different parties, and there's all this discussion about it. So it's always the lag indicator. It's always low. I think the least I made minimum wage when I was in Florida was $2.35 an hour, because I was a tipped and the tips could count as the makeup of my hourly rate. Now, think about that for a second. You, the customer going in to eat, are paying the salary of the person that's there, not the company. Right? So that company is benefiting from that person working probably 3 times over for the amount of money they pay. And that goes for minimum wage in a lot of places now.
Yeah. It's so funny you bring up the tip worker thing, because I was talking to Chason a little while ago, so my husband and I got, finally got the post-COVID, post-pandemic vacation that we've been missing. And we went over to Austria. Let me tell you something. We ate and drank great things, high quality food. We got good service the whole way through. Guess what? We paid less money for better food and drink over there than we pay in America. The people serving us, there is no tipping because they're paid a living wage.
Yeah, and it's not evenly distributed. So when we talk about the gap between CEO pay or senior C-suite pay and the frontline workers, it's not just even among the frontline workers. You've still got disparities for people of color. You've still got disparities in pay for women. And that's exacerbated even worse when that CEO makes 4,000 times more than the frontline worker, right? Yeah. And I don't know how we can look ourselves in the mirror every day and have that kind of money coming in and knowing that you could do something to help people's lives get better. I have never seen the quality of a CEO that was worth 4,000 times what a frontline worker is.
But how do we fix it?
I think we have to do a lot of myth busting and math.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Myth busting and math, I know, and I'm shocked that M word came out of my mouth, but even I'm going to say that, I'm not always so great at it, but I can add this stuff all day, every day. So bottom line is, what business leaders fail to see are what I call the hidden taxes in business, the costs that they're running without really looking at it because they're so busy bean counting that they've forgotten. And so here's a perfect example: turnover. Turnover is an extremely expensive problem in a lot of businesses. And turnover also, by the way, tends to be, wait for it, very high in very low paid work environments. Where do we see the fastest spinning revolving door? Retail, hospitality, a lot of these lower paid positions. Why? Because, it's a grind. It's horrible. So Chason, I'd shared with you a while ago that really great article about that manager of a Chick-fil-A who myth busted and did his math and realized when he started paying his staff the right kind of wages to make it livable, guess what? Turnover dropped like crazy, which also meant he wasn't paying all those hidden things like I got to buy new uniforms and I got to retrain people and all that stuff that calculates in. I mean, depending on the nature of the work, you might be looking at more than 2 times annual salary in replacement costs associated. And what he found was he had higher engagement, higher productivity, healthier people who didn't have as many sick days, didn't have to spend as much on all the, uniform and training and this and that. And he said, like, my location is going gangbusters simply because he ignored the myth and did the math.
No, it's fantastic. And I absolutely believe we need to do more myth busting because there's a lot of misnomers that are passed around work environments where it's not done intentionally, but it's sort of this accepted that, oh no, we can't do that because the company can't afford it. And I think you will get a lot of people responding when you start breaking that down. But I like to think about it like a leak in a dam. We've got this giant dam that we can't break, right? It's so big, we can't get through it. But a lot like what's happening now with remote work and work from home, once some companies started doing it and once some companies were seeing the value from it, then it started to break loose. And now there's no going from that, because if an employee like myself or anyone looks for a job and wants something remote, they'll go to the place that offers minimum wage or better pay. Once that starts and the math starts to work for that company, then other companies will follow. Right now, it's hard to break through to get that, but I believe it has to be a social movement. Like the employees are actually making the choice that's driving. There's not enough solid business cases that I've tried anyway that breaks through that wall. I've tried to put all you've talked about, Michelle, about the cost of turnover. I've even brought it down to actual numbers for turnover for certain positions or front line. Some just isn't enough. They're not. It just doesn't break through that wall because you're asking people to give up money and restructure pay. But if other companies start doing it, you'll be surprised at how fast the rest of them will start to do that.
I love that, Jay. And if I may add to that, it's not just from the company perspective. I think that's this notion of the social movement that needs to get behind this. As consumers of these companies, we should make a movement to say, I mean, I know I make very deliberate choices about certain things when I, make purchase decisions. There are certain products I will not buy because, I'm looking for this, that, or the other qualification around it. I think as consumers, when we start to demand from these organizations, hey, you said the tip word a few minutes ago. Did you see a little foam at the corner of my mouth starting to do not get me? Come on. Why am I subsidizing you? And so I think we have to start demanding from companies, it's the lazy answer for leaders to sit there and say that. So I think we as consumers have to start asking questions and moving our wallets around and saying, I'm not going to buy from an organization that does not, and ask questions. How are you getting paid? Are you doing the right things? Are you doing more than the minimum standard? Anybody can do the minimum standard. That's so mediocre. Be a standout.
Yeah. And I think one of the ways that we can start in Michelle is the movement towards pay transparency right now. And the opening of that, I don't think that will be a drive for pay equity change. I even saw someone who posted on LinkedIn that they were going to put the salaries they had made at every job on their resume as a way to expose pay transparency. And the more we talk about it, the more we say what we make, what other people make, the more we realize it is enormous. And the math doesn't work out.
Yeah, because otherwise we're back to the mythology of why aren't we supposed to talk about our money? Because it is embarrassing when you realize how screwball it is.
Yes.
Don't talk about it. It might be awkward.
And if a company pays well, why are they scared of showing their pay?
Sure, they should brag about it.
That's right. And if they're paying equally and if they're paying well, that's something that they can leverage. If they're scared of it, or if they think that they have made some mistakes, maybe by paying someone more as they came in, someone else in that role, that's another discussion. And I think once that starts to happen on a broader context, then I think pay equity is really going to start to get into it, and the conversation about being able to pay a living wage.
Right.
This has been Time to Change with Michelle Arentz and Jay Grooms. Join us again next time. Thank you so much for being with us.